Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start the class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guru Namah. Om Bhur Swaha Tatsavitra Varenayam, Vargo Devasya Dhimai, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Sabdamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vavatu, Sehna Bhunaktu, Seviryam Karvavai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. Let's open our Uddhava Gita books on page number 190. This is chapter 6 and verse number 3 to 6 together. Sat sangen hi daityeha yatudhana mrigakra gandharva apsar soho nagaha siddhacharan guhaka Vidyadhara manusheshu vaishya shudra istriyo antyja rajas tamha prakritasya tasmin yuge yuge bahvo mat padam prapt tvashra kaya dhvadya vrishparvaha balirbano maya shatha vibhishna. And the last one, Sugrivo Hanuman rikshoho gajo gridho vanikpatha Vyadha kubja vrajegapyo yagye patanasya tathapare. In every yuga, many who are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, including demons, animals, birds, gandharvas, apsaras, nags, siddhs, charans, guhyaks, vidyadhars, vaishya, shudra, women, and others, were able to come back home, back to Godhead, due to gaining the association of my devotees. Vritasur and Prahlad Maharaj also attained my transcendental abode due to the association of devotees, as did Vrishparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasur, Maya, Vibhishan, Sugriv, Hanuman, Jamvan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhar, Dharamvyad, Kubaj, the gopis of Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmins that were performing sacrifices. So commentary on these verses. These 4 verses, so verses 3 to 6, describe how the Supreme Lord is directly controlled by the gopis of Vraj and indirectly by demons like King Ban. There are 2 kinds of saintly persons, those who are engaged in activities based on devotional service and those who are engaged in pure, unalloyed devotional service. The controlling power of the former is indirect, whereas the controlling power of the latter is direct. The word Yatudhan refers to demons such as Tvastraha and Vritasur. Prahlad received the association of Shri Narad even before his birth. Soon after his birth, Vrishparva was rejected by his mother. He was then brought up by a sage and became a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Bali Maharaj attained the association of Prahlad Maharaj. All these examples are given in the Puranas. When King Ban's arms were being cut off, he received the association of Mahadeva. While constructing their assembly house, the demon Maya had the association of the Pandavas. Vibhishan received Hanuman's association. The monkeys headed by Sugriv received Lakshman's association. Gajendra, the king of the elephants, received the association of Shri Narad in his previous life. The giant bird Jatayu had Garud's and Dashrath's association. The stories of Vanik or Tuladhar are narrated in Mahabharata. But it is unclear whose association they had received. The story of Dharamvyad, the non-violent hunter, was described in the Varaha Purana. In a previous life, he somehow became a Brahm Rakshas or Brahman ghost, but was eventually saved. In a previous Kali Yuga, he had the association of a Vaishnav king named Vasu. In the Harivansh, it is stated that in her previous life, Kubja had the association of Narad. The sages of Dandakrayan, who appeared as gopis in Vraj, had the association of many saintly persons in their previous life, and the association of eternally perfect gopis in their next life. The wives of the Brahmins who were engaged in performing sacrifice had the opportunity to associate with the Krishna's messengers, Mali and Tambuli, when they went to Mathura on business. Simply by the influence of the devotees' association, all of one's incompetence is destroyed so that one become qualified to attain the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's like a company of the saintly people has a tremendous effect on us. That's why satsanga is so important. So company can make or break us. And this is what's mentioned in these 4 verses, the company. Te nadhit shruti gana nopasit mahatmaha avratatap tapsaha matsangan mam upagata. These persons did not study the Vedas, worship saintly persons, or performed terrible austerities. They had attained my association simply as a result of the association of my devotees. So, according to the achievement they made by means of sadhu sangha, the above mentioned persons either achieved mixed devotional service or pure devotional service. There was no need for them to follow other sadhanas. They did not study the Vedas, which indicates that they did not approach sages who were well acquainted with the Vedas. Similarly, they did not perform any austerities or execute any vows. They developed devotional service simply by the association of the Lord's devotees and thus ultimately attained his shelter. Without following any other sadhana, simply by the influence of the devotees' association, one can attain the devotional service of Supreme Lord. Verse number 8. Kevalen hi bhaven gopyo gavo nagamrika ye ne mudaha dhiyo nagaha siddha mam ayur ajrasaha. All of the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis, cows, trees and plants, animals and serpents, very easily attained life's perfections because of their love for me. So the unique position of the gopis is herein described. The word keval means devoid of karam and gyan. So keval bhakti, keval love. Or in other words, pure devotional service without any tinge of material desire. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered in the moods of Shrinagar, Vatsalya, Sakhe, or Dasya. The gopis attained the Lord by serving him in the mood of Madhurya Rasa, the cows in the mood of Vatsalya Rasa, Govardhan hill and the deer in the mood of Sakhya Rasa, and the trees and the creepers of Vrindavan, as well as the Kaliya serpent in the mood of Dasya Rasa. The gopis referred to in this verse are the eternally perfect gopis. Indeed, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan should be considered eternally liberated souls, as expressed by the word Siddh, which means having achieved the perfection of life. By love and devotion, persons who appear to be incompetent can achieve the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so he is telling us the power of devotional love, the pure love. Love where there's no other motive. Love for the sake of loving God only. That's it. That's why he used the word keval only. Verse number 9. Yamna yogen sankhyen dan vrat tapo dhare. Vyakhyaha swadhyaya sannyase praptu yad yatanvan api. Even though others engaged with great endeavor in the mystic yoga system, philosophical speculation, giving charity, executing vows and penances, performing ritualistic sacrifices, teaching the Vedic mantras to others, a personal study of the Vedas, or the renounced order of life, they could not achieve me. Even if one faithfully practices the yoga system, one cannot attain the devotional service of the Lord. Association of devotees is the only criteria for attaining pure devotional service, not any other discipline or pious activity. This is the purport of this verse. So while doing other activities, if we can cultivate the love for God, then it's okay. But if we just become arrogant, that I know more mantras, I have done more austerities, we are creating a wall between us and God. Even if one carefully studies the atheistic or theistic Sankhya philosophy, gives charity, observes vows, undergoes austerity, performs sacrifices, studies the Vedas, and explains the Vedic literature to others, one will still not attain the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so love for God should be utmost. So it's not that we should not do other things, but we got to always keep the goal in mind. Goal is to love God and only God. रामेन सार्थम मथुराम प्रणीते श्वाफलिकनः मध्ये अनुरक्त चिता विगाढ़ भावेन न मे वियोग तीव्राध्यो नयम ददृशुः सुखाय. This is verse number 10. When Akrur took me to Mathura along with my brother Baldev, the gopis whose hearts were completely attached to me felt severe mental agony due to separation from me. And we are all familiar with this story. He was a young boy and was taken to Mathura. They thus could not consider any source of happiness other than my association. That the devotional mood of the gopis is the topmost form of devotional service is being stressed in these 4 verses. When Krishna was brought to Mathura by Akrura, the gopis could not see anything that would give them happiness because their love for Krishna was so intense. The gopis were situated on the platform of Adhiruddha, Mahabhava. In such a loving condition, they felt severe mental agony due to separation from their beloved Krishna. Because this verse is spoken in the past tense, it is understood that the gopis rejoined Krishna after the killing of Dantavakra. No one who desires actual happiness can achieve his goal of life without engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, who is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. The gopis, whose attachment for Krishna was intense, felt unlimited distress because of separation from him. When he and Balram left for Mathura with Akrura. Tasataha kshapa prashet tamen nitaha mayeva vrindavan gocharen kushanartham vataha punarangaha tasam hina maya kalpa sama babhuvu. Dear Uddhava, the nights that the gopis spent with me in Vrindavan appeared to them to be no more than a moment. Because good time, it flies fast, we know that. Now in separation from me, a night appears to them to be longer than a kalapa. On the topmost platform of love of God, there are symptoms such as Adhiruddha Mahabhav. Even a kalap seems like a moment because of attachment for Krishna, and the same moment appears like a kalap in separation from Krishna. Lord Krishna says, although the gopis spent an entire night of Brahma and me enjoying the Ras dance, they considered it to be less than a moment. This was their experience when they were with me in Vrindavan. And yet, the gopis considered the same one moment to be more than hundreds of yugas whenever Krishna went to the pasturing grounds to tend the cows. So that is like a love, utmost love. Verse number 12. Ta na vidan maye anushang bad dhiya swam atmanam adas tathedam yatha samadhav munyo abdhi toye nadya parvishta ivnam rupe. Just as sages by means of samadhi forget the names and the forms of this world because of their full absorption in the self. Like rivers merging into the ocean, the gopis were so attached to me that they could not even think of their own bodies, their lives in this world, or their future lives. So it's like a total merger with the beloved. It is stated in Ujjwal Nilamani that forgetfulness without any question of illusion is a feature of Adhiruddha Mahabhav. So these are like a different devotional sentiments. This is being described in this verse, wherein it is said about the gopis, their intelligence was captivated by my association. Here the word bad or captivated means that the propensity of the intelligence has become more enthusiastic due to the enchanting pastimes of Shri Krishna. These propensities of the intelligence are just like wish-fulfilling cows that fulfill all of Krishna's desires. The gopis could not know who they were, where they were, or where they had come from while performing Ras dance. They transgressed all worldly etiquette, shyness, fear, and so on, just like sages who forget everything when they realize Brahma while in Samadhi. The gopis are herein compared to the sages in Samadhi because they both exhibit single-minded concentration. Actually, the ecstatic love of the gopis is far superior to the dry meditation of the sages who are trying to liberate themselves from the material body. The gopis did not possess material bodies because they were personally dancing with the Supreme Lord and embracing Him. It should be very well understood that the bliss of impersonal Brahma realization hardly equals a tiny fragment of the ocean of ecstatic love of Krishna. The Supreme Lord comes under the control of His pure devotees. The sages were not attached to the Supreme Lord, and so they could not control Him with their love. Rivers enter the ocean, losing their separate identity. This is an example to illustrate how devotees become fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, and thus relish the mallows of devotional service without any concern for their personal existence. The gopis whose hearts were fully attached to Krishna and who were thus in a trance of meditation upon the service of the Lord completely forgot about their relatives as well as their gross and subtle bodies. They forgot about their personal existence, their names, forms, and so on, just as a river loses its identity after entering the ocean. So again, complete merger. Verse number 13. Mat kamaha ramanam jaram asavrupaha vidobala brahma mam paramam praya Sankach, Chat, Saharsha, all those hundreds of thousands of cowherd girls, although ignorant of my actual position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, attained me simply by desiring my association as their paramour. So they didn't know. I mean, for them, it was just a loving Krishna, that's all. Nothing else. Everything else they forgot in their depth of love. Shri Krishna herein explains how the gopis attained his shelter. The gopis desired nothing but me, the Supreme Brahm. How did they attain me? I enjoyed pastimes with them, and thus they experienced great happiness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Shukdev Goswami said, after seeing the beauty of Vrindavan, Krishna desired to enjoy his Ras Leela pastimes. Although Krishna is self-sufficient, he enjoyed the Ras dance with the gopis. Did the gopis enjoy Krishna's company as a husband? No, as a paramour. What was the essential characteristics of the gopis? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the gopis were so attracted by my sweetness and beauty that they forgot about my opulent features. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for me to enjoy their company. Although they were the most beautiful girls in the creation, they forgot about their own beauty, being attracted by my beauty. This is what is being indicated by the word asparvidha, not understanding my actual position or form. Because of their strong desire to please Krishna, the gopis who were completely absorbed in the service of the Lord and who had only one goal in life, attained the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The gopis were many and the Lord was one. Following their example, innumerable persons of a similar nature attained the association of the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Although from an external point of view, the gopis may be considered as women attached to a man other than their husband because they took shelter of the Supreme Enjoyer, their conduct is always to be glorified. Next two verses are together, and after that, Uddhav says something. So 14 and 15. Tasmat tvam udvo utsrijye he chodnam prati chodnam pravritim cha nivritim cha shrotavyam shrutam ev cha mam ekam ev sharnam atmanam sarvdehinam yahi sarvatma bhavena maya seyahi akuto bhaya. Therefore, my dear Uddhava, abandon the mantras of the Shrutis and Samritis as well as the rules and regulations prescribed in the supplementary Vedic literature. Disregard all that you have heard and all that is to be heard and just surrender unto me alone because I am the super soul of all living entities. By taking shelter of me, you will certainly be freed from fear in all circumstances by my mercy. After Shri Uddhav had inquired about the characteristics of a saintly person, so that's what he asked in the beginning of this chapter. The Supreme Lord Krishna described the characteristics of the two classes of transcendentalists, the methods for executing devotional service in the association of devotees, and how devotional service has the power to control him. The Lord next described the good qualities of the devotees and concluded that the gopis' devotion to him is the topmost platform of love of God. The Lord further described how, when he was being taken along with Balram by Akrur to Mathura, the gopis shed incessant tears due to impending separation from him. The gopis were greatly agitated due to feelings of ecstatic love in separation from the Lord, and thus their devotional service could control him. Here, Lord Krishna is trying to inspire Uddhav to follow in the footsteps of the gopis and thus render devotional service as they did. Shri Krishna said to Uddhav, give up the rules and regulations prescribed in the scriptures and give up all the recommended and prohibited activities mentioned in the Vedas. Does this mean that Uddhav should take sannyas? No. It means that he should give up the activities that are prescribed for both householders and sannyasis, and he should become indifferent to all that has been heard, as well as all that may be heard in the future. In this way, Uddhav should abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to Krishna in the mood of one of the five rasas. Then he will have no fear by Krishna's mercy. He should not think that he will be the loser by rejecting fruitive activities and the cultivation of knowledge. The Supreme Lord is there to protect his devotees from all types of fearful conditions. After carefully deliberating on that which was spoken by the Supreme Lord, one should simply surrender himself at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality, Godhead, knowing that this will eradicate all lamentation, illusion, and fear. Taking shelter of too many persons will not award one any real benefit. Rather, by taking shelter of the son of the king of Vraj alone, who is one without a second, one will easily be liberated from the hands of all inauspiciousness. So he's talking about the complete, utmost level of surrender. Surrender to God. Verse number 16. So Uddhav is saying, Sansheha Shrinvato Vacham Tav Yog Yogeshwar Na Nirvartataha Atamsto Yen Brahmyati Me Mana. Shri Uddhav said, O Lord of the foremost yogis, even after hearing your statements, the doubt in my heart has not gone away. So my mind is bewildered. Uddhav says, my dear Lord Krishna, you had first recommended that I perform my duties according to the Varnashram system. But then you advised me to give up these activities and take to the advancement of knowledge. Now you seem to be rejecting the path of Gyan and recommending that I surrender unto you and practice Bhakti Yoga. If I accept this path, how do I not know that in the future you will not once again recommend that I perform my worldly duties? Such frank talk indicates Uddhav's intimate relationship with Lord Krishna. In the first verse of the 4th chapter, the Lord said that one should take shelter of him while continuing to perform one's prescribed duties within the Varnashram system without material desire. Uddhav took this to mean Karam Mishra Bhakti, or devotional service mixed with the fruitive activities. Of course, if one has not yet realized that Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes, there is no question of renouncing worldly responsibilities. Such a person is encouraged to offer the fruits of his work to the Lord. In the 4th verse of the 4th chapter, the Lord recommended that one give up his worldly duties and engage in the cultivation of knowledge. Uddhav took this to mean Gyan Mishra Bhakti, or devotional service mixed with speculative knowledge. Beginning with verse 35 of the 4th chapter, Uddhav inquired about the two conditions of existence, material bondage and liberation. In response, the Lord explained that without devotional service, mere philosophical speculation cannot enable one to attain perfection. In verse 18 of chapter 5, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead was extolled. And in verse 23, Krishna recommended hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. The Lord concluded by saying that the association of devotees is essential for spiritual advancement. In verse 26 of the 5th chapter, Uddhav inquired about the details of the devotional service and the characteristics of perfection. And in verse 48, Lord Krishna stated that only engagement in devotional service awards one liberation. Finally, in verse 14 of this chapter, The Lord firmly rejected both fruitive activities and mental speculation. And in verse 15, he recommended that one surrender unto him unconditionally. After receiving so many instructions, Uddhava appears to be bewildered about what he should actually do. For this reason, Uddhav requests Lord Krishna to clearly tell him exactly what he should do. Okay, so sometimes so many instructions and they contradict each other also. So that's why he wants clarification. So let's see what Lord Krishna says. Verse number 17. Sa esh jivoh vivar prasuti pranen goshen guham pravishtaha manomeyam sukshmam upete rupam matra swaro varna iti sathav vishtaha. The Supreme Lord said, my dear Uddhava, the Supreme Lord is situated within the hearts of all living beings. It is only by His presence that the life here functions so that the physical processes continue to function. The Lord's subtle presence within the heart can be perceived by seeing how the mind is under superior control. The Lord also appears as the sound of the Vedas, which is composed of short and long vowels and consonants. Uddhav was bewildered because Lord Krishna had explained many different processes, such as devotional service, speculative knowledge, renunciation, mystic yoga, austerities, and pious duties. All of these processes are meant to help the living entities obtain the shelter of Lord Krishna, either directly or indirectly. Thus, Lord Krishna explained the entire Vedic system from the beginning stages to the most advanced. Actually, Lord Krishna was surprised that Uddhav thought that he was meant to practice every process as if the instructions were just meant for him. Lord Krishna therefore wants to inform his devotees, my dear Uddhav, when I told you that analytic knowledge is to be practiced, pious duties are to be performed, devotional service is obligatory, yoga procedures must be observed, and austerities are to be executed, I was instructing all living entities. Although you were my immediate audience, whatever I spoke in the past, have spoken now, and will speak in the future, should be understood as guidance for all living entities in different situations. How could you possibly think that you are meant to practice all of the different Vedic processes? I accept you as you are now, my pure devotee. You are not supposed to execute all of these processes. In this way, with light-hearted and encouraging words, the Lord revealed to Uddhav the deep purpose behind the variety of Vedic procedures. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the knower of the Vedas, and it was He who appeared from the four mouths of Brahma in the form of the Vedas. This is being described in this verse. The word Jeev indicates that it is the Supreme Lord who gives life. The Lord is speaking this verse with firm conviction while touching his chest with his index finger. The word Vivar indicates that the Vedas have manifested from the wombs of Brahma's body. The word Ghosh means transcendental sound vibrations. This sound vibration, along with the life air, entered the heart of Brahma and manifested in the form of the Vedas, which is composed of short and long vowels and consonants pronounced with high and low tones. When Krishna and Balram left for Mathura, the gopis became greatly afflicted due to their pain of separation from Krishna. They could not imagine any other source of happiness than the association of Krishna. This has been described in the 10th verse. In the 13th verse of this chapter, the purport of all the Vedic literatures has been explained. Then in 2 verses, the supremacy of the Supreme Lord has been described. The Lord is the ultimate shelter of everyone, and all the Vedic mantras are transcendental sound vibrations that have emanated from him. Sridhar Swami has described the word vivar as meaning the basis of everything. This has been elaborately discussed in verses 36 to 43 of the 21st chapter of the 11th canto. Transcendental sound vibrations appear in two forms, gross and subtle. From the subtle form, the life air, intelligence, and the mind are manifest. From the gross form, the senses, par, pashyanti, madhyama, and vakri manifest. The mind and the senses are particularly described as par or pranamay. When subtle sustenance is associated with the transcendental sound vibration, it is known as manomay, pashyanti. When pranav or om is manifest, it's called buddhimay, madhyama. When pranav transforms into alphabets, it is called vakri. Vakri produces different meters such as brihati. The 10th verse presents another meaning. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the life and the soul of Vraj. Although Lord Krishna eternally performs his pastimes in the spiritual world, beyond the vision of the conditioned souls, he also enters within the material universe to display these same pastimes. The words Guham Pravishta indicates that after displaying such pastimes, the Lord withdraws them and enters into his unmanifest pastimes, or those pastimes not manifest to the conditioned souls. In this case, Matra indicates the transcendental senses of the Lord. Swar indicates the Lord's transcendental sound, vibration, and singing. And the word Varan indicates the transcendental form of the Lord. The word Sathavishta or gross manifestation means that the Lord becomes manifest in the material world even to those devotees who are not completely advanced in Krishna consciousness and whose vision is not completely purified. Manome indicates that somehow or other Lord Krishna is to be kept within one's mind. And for the non-devotees, Lord Krishna is Suksham or most subtle because he cannot be known. Subtle. Let's do one more verse. Verse number 18. यथा नल्लः के नीलबंधुर ऊष्मः बलेन दारुणे अधिमत्यमाना अनुप्रजातो हविषः समेधेते तथैव में व्यक्तिर इयम ही वाणी. When two pieces of wood are vigorously rubbed together, heat is produced by contact with air, so that a spark appears. Once the fire is kindled, ghee is added to that fire blazes. Similarly, I am manifest in the sound vibration of the Vedas. Lord Krishna said to Uddhava, although there is a fire within the wood, it does not manifest until there is a friction with another piece of wood. When two pieces of wood are vigorously rubbed together, sparks appear with the help of the air. Thereafter, it becomes a blazing fire as one continues to pour ghee upon it. Similarly, the Vedas are produced from me. Who other than me can know the confidential purport of the Vedas? It is I who have prescribed the process of karam, gyan, and bhakti, so that the conditioned souls can become delivered from material existence. My dear Uddhav, I am now imparting the proper understanding of these processes to you because you are the person most qualified to receive this knowledge. Later on, you will enlighten the sages at Badrikashram, thus enabling them to achieve life's ultimate goal. And we all know that the time of this message was when Lord Krishna was leaving his body. So he is giving this deep knowledge for the benefit of those sages in Badrikashram. The pastimes of the Supreme Lord become manifest when there is a glorification of the Lord in the association of devotees. Just as fire, which remains in an unmanifest state, is produced by the friction of two pieces of wood, then becomes a blazing fire with the help of air and ghee, the manifestation of the Lord's pastimes, along with his names, forms, and qualities, is realized by means of kirtan. Simply by the chanting of the holy name of kirtan, a Christian, his forms, qualities, and pastimes become manifest. So we'll start with verse number 19 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.